Hello, Mark Red Larson here for the Dream Catcher Podcast. Thank you for joining us. Today I have Katja Rusanen.
Yes.
I hope I said your name right. From Spain, beautiful Spain. So Marbella, Spain, is that right? Did I say that right?
Marbella, yes.
Okay. Thanks for joining us today. So how are you doing today?
I am doing excellent and so excited to have you be able to be here and have this opportunity to inspire people.
Well, thanks for joining us. I'm thankful and very grateful that you joined us today. So we just recently met, and not too long ago. And so, are you originally from Spain?
I'm not. I'm originally from Finland, all the way north of Europe.
Okay. So, what got you from Finland to Spain?
Well, when I was 6 years old, I told my mom, because it was a winter day, I was not able to go out to play because it was way too cold. I just told her all of a sudden, like an announcement, by the way, Mom, when I'm grown up, I'm going to move abroad, just so you know.
That's awesome. I love that.
And then the day came, and that dream never went away. So I always knew I'm going to move abroad. And Finland is an amazing country. It's a really lovely country. But I had this calling to move abroad. And then later on, I did. And I told my mom, well, at least I gave you a fair amount of warning.
You did. You knew what you were going to do early on. That is so cool. I mean, that really is, because some people never get to that point, and and that's taking action. You took the action that you said you were going to do. So, okay. Yeah. So, do you ever go back to Finland, or do you just pretty much stay in Spain?
I do. My parents have already passed, but I do have two sisters there, so I go to visit them and my nephews and their families too. So,
okay, that's awesome. So, getting to what you do today, what was the impetus that got you started on with what you're doing today? And exactly explain kind of what you do exactly for our audience.
Sure. So I love helping, especially coaches and healers, to discover the power of their stories. Because I believe that we all have a story that can help somebody else. Because we all go through life experiences and we learn from them. And when we have the courage then to share the learning, that can be a spark of light, spark of hope, spark of inspiration for somebody else.
Right.
And so I help, first of all, to overcome any fears, limiting inner stories, anything that might be holding them back from sharing their story. For me personally, it took me 15 years to be able to be in a place where I'm willing and able to share my story. And I can share a little bit more of that, but that's my own journey inspired me to help others to share their stories and share their transformation. So that is what I love to do, and helping people to really discover the power that we have in our stories.
Yes, I agree. And the further I get along in my journey, the more I realize that too, very much. So what went on in your life to get you to this point, up to the very beginning?
So the thing that got me on this path was that when I was 16 years old, I fell in love for the first time. And maybe you remember also the first love, and all of a sudden everything looks so much better than before, and the sun is shining brighter. There is more color in life, more vibrancy in life. It's just life changes so much better, and you feel this bubbling happiness when you are together with your special one. But unfortunately, my love story did not have this happily ever after. It ended very suddenly when I heard the news that my boyfriend had died by suicide.
Oh, that's so sad on so many levels.
Yeah, and that put me into a very dark place, and I was asking the question, why? And I was going through every
Yeah.
single word and every single detail I could remember, trying to understand and trying to find the answers of why this happened. And
Right. I
I
bet.
felt, because I'm very intuitive, I felt that I should have known. Like I was blaming myself for not seeing it coming, not being able to be there for him, not being able to prevent it from happening. Because I felt like if I would have been more attentive, more attractive, more whatever, he would have stayed. And
Right.
I carried this guilt, and that guilt made me feel that I can't go on. And I was very near
I
to
can see
take my
that.
own life. But
Oh,
luckily,
wow.
there was a spark of light coming to my mind in 11th hour that made me turn
Thankfully.
back and choose life. And that choice then put me on the spiritual path because I was seeking those answers. I was seeking to understanding, and the spirituality and spiritual teachings were starting to give me some sparks of light, and that helped me to
Okay. Okay.
gain awareness. But I was still really resistant to tell my story because I still felt like it was this deep, dark secret that I needed to hide. And I didn't talk
Right. I can
about
see
it
that.
for 15 years. And it was heavy as well. I had this protective wall. I
Oh,
didn't
I
let
bet.
people near. And
Right.
then 15 years later, and this is funny story
Uh-huh.
actually,
Okay.
I went to a palm reader because that's where you go
Oh,
when you're
really?
in a
Yeah.
crossroads in
Okay.
life.
I love that.
Very, very normal thing to do, I guess.
Yes.
I went to a palm reader and he said many, many accurate things. And then he just suddenly asked, like, why don't you write? And that question stirred something inside of me. And I was like, he knew that I have a story to tell. And
Yeah.
I there and then, and it was in Spanish. That time my Spanish wasn't that good. So I was like, all I could say was, yes, I
That
will
would be
start
like, yeah, I
writing.
can relate with that. Yep. I know what you mean. Yes.
I was just saying, see, and I was promising that I will start writing, and I did. That night I started writing what became then my first novel, and it's based on
Nice.
the core event that I went through. And that
Okay.
was another healing journey because I was able to see those life experiences from a little bit different perspective as I put it in this fictional novel. But that
Okay.
started to help me to express. And that
That makes
expression
sense.
later on brought the wisdom because I started to see that life didn't happen to me, life happened for me. And the limited
Yes.
inner story within me that I wasn't enough started to change, started to shift. And I
Yeah.
started then to see the lessons that I have learned. And then there came the spark to start sharing it with first
Cool.
with one person in a safe environment,
Uh-huh.
and then with a couple of people, then in a small group, then in a bigger group, and now I'm sharing the story openly. But it was the journey
Yeah.
that took me there that I'm now able to speak about it openly. And
Yes. And
that's
that is,
what I want to help others to do as well.
yeah, that's, it's, you never know what your story, how it's going to affect other people. And I'm glad you got to the point where you are able to share it. So, I just, like I was saying before we started this podcast, everybody's going through something. And the fact that you got to this point. And, so how long have you been on your journey here? I mean, what you're doing today when you actually started still telling your story. Sorry about that.
No worries. So I have been coaching 10 years now. And before
Okay.
that, I was working in one of the world's leading business banks. And then I had this calling to jump out, take a leap of faith, and start coaching. So much so that
Okay.
it was super scary, but I felt like
Oh, I bet.
I needed to do it and I wanted to do it.
Yep.
And then luckily I did find later on business mentors that helped me on the way because I believe we are not meant to do
Okay,
this
cool.
journey alone. It took me a while because I felt like first I need to figure
I
things
agree.
out on my own. But then I realized that there is so much help available when we are willing and able to
Yes.
receive the support that is
Yes.
available for us.
Yes. And I've gone on the same journey. I thought I had to do it. And yeah, there is so much help out there. So, and I yeah, I think we all, it's like, I do it, everybody's like, kind of like when you're a little kid, I do it. And it's like, then you finally get to the point, it's like, no. Well, I'm a big fan. I actually am a coach too. And I'm a big fan of coaches because they direct you and shorten the learning curve, they
Mm-hmm.
just, with their experiences and everything like that. So, okay, you've gotten trained and everything and you've written, I think you've written more than one book now or have,
I have. If I the first novel, Why to Write One Book When You Can Write Three, so it became trilogy, and then I
cool.
have also contributed to four best-selling books, and
Oh,
that's
wow.
been part of the journey as well because I love writing and sharing
Hmm.
inspiration that way.
That is so cool. So okay, I'm gonna because I suffer from what you talk about. My inner story telling me that I'm not good enough to do that. So
Mhm.
how can people find you? Like if I was wanting to have your help, I mean, do you have your own website, or how do people find your coaching
Yes.
services?
Yes, so people can find me through my website, and I guess you're gonna put it on the show notes because
Yes.
my
Yep.
name
Yep.
comes from Finland. So it is
Yes. Yes.
katjarusanen.com. And I'm also on most of the social media platforms like
Okay.
Facebook and Instagram. And I do have a YouTube channel as well where
Cool.
I
Very
share
cool.
inspirational content and videos to help especially spiritual entrepreneurs on their journey to overcome the limiting inner stories and then create the success that is aligned with their soul.
Yes, yes. So, okay. So, how does your inner story affect success? I mean, in your whole life, how do you feel that when the inner story is keeping people from success?
Hmm.
How do you deal with those people that are? I mean, I don't know the answer, question I'm asking, but really, the inner story is about everything that is in your life. The way you have it today is because your inner story, right? If I'm getting that right.
Yeah.
So how would somebody overcome that? And where do you think a lot of times the inner story comes from?
Hmm. So often we start when life happens, there are life
Right.
events, especially the challenging ones that we go through, they start influencing how we are relating to ourselves, what are the stories that we tell about ourselves as we went through that event,
Okay.
others, the world, and the event itself as well. And that then starts influencing how we see the world. It influences our perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens then, especially these stories are often negative, and it starts
Okay.
then bringing extra obstacles for us to achieve success. For example, the story that you mentioned, and I get it too, like I have had it too, like I'm not enough, I'm not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
that's a very common story. Or it's not safe to be visible. I need to
True.
hide. So think
Mm-hmm.
about if you have, for example, it's not safe to be visible story, and that can come from childhood experiences that somebody told you to don't be that like stay away from sight, and you
Okay, I
take
see. I
that
got you.
in like
Right.
you're like okay, and And it's also common after trauma that we feel the need to hide. At least that was my experience, and I have talked
And I
with
can see
others
that.
as well. We have this
Right.
feeling we need to hide to protect ourselves. But then when
Right.
you have a business and you need to be visible in order for your
Yes.
clients to hear about you,
Exactly. Yes.
that's where this inner story starts really challenging you, because I think about doing a Facebook Live when all of part of you is screaming to you like, I need to hide. It's not safe to be visible. And there you are
Yeah.
trying to broadcast to the world.
It would be well, it'd be crippling. It could be crippling, trying to do a Facebook Live with that inner story, I would think. So no,
So
that is I can see, because you do, like you were saying, you need to be visible if you're going to be successful when you're doing business. And so do you have a program that you go through for helping people to get over this?
So I do one-on-one coaching at the moment to help people to walk step by step. I have a 5-step method that helps
Okay.
to rewrite these inner stories. Because that's the good news here. First, you need to
Okay.
become aware that I do have a story that is not serving me. And I can help you also discover, because sometimes people just get stuck.
I
They
can see
have
that
a
too.
business, they are not growing that business, they do things right. They have this right strategy, they are taking action, but yet they are not getting enough sales, they are not getting enough business. So then it might be time to check, like, what else is happening inside of me? Because I am
Right.
taking the right action, but it's still not working. So
Yeah.
then most likely there is a limiting inner story that is going on. But first
Okay.
thing is to gain that awareness. And sometimes it's easier when you have somebody else holding the lamp there so you can see more
Right.
clearly. And that's what I
Right.
do with my
Okay.
clients. I
Okay.
help them to find the story, and then we start rewriting that story through
Okay.
the 5-step method that I have.
Cool.
And once they go through that journey, they have rewritten that story to something that serves them better. And then it's to just start telling yourself the new story and taking action. And that's the time as well where the support is needed, because you are bringing
Yes.
something new, because you might have told the old story 5 years, 20 years, 40 years, whatever
Yeah.
time that is for
Right.
you. And then you are like bringing the new story in. It's good to have support to
I can see that.
really integrate that new story so that you
Right.
can have the success that you desire.
Yeah. I mean, that is, and I can see that, to have where you have somebody kind of holding you accountable to your new story, because I think I find when I get frustrated, fall back to old habits or old ways, and I could see that would be something that people would want to do too. I can very much relate with this, because I haven't been on my journey that long. And when I was definitely younger, I didn't talk much. I have found my voice since then, to say the least. But but it is, and it's still, the old ways still come up in my mind. It's like, you're not worth this. So I can very much relate with that, and putting the new vision, new story in your mind. So okay, so stories, the story you tell. How do you come up with a new story? How do you? I mean, I have struggled myself. It's like with a new story, keeping that relevant. Like my mind's like, you're just making it up. Why? You're not really that. So how do you deal with somebody dealing with that, if I may ask? So,
And that's brilliant. And thank you for being open and sharing your own experience. So what would be, if there is this story, I'm not worthy or whatever that is. So then it would be, first of all, it might be I'm choosing or I'm willing to see myself as worthy. Because sometimes
Okay.
going to the opposite, and that's why many affirmations don't work, because it's a too big jump from
Oh,
feeling
okay.
I'm not worthy to I am worthy. Some can do it directly. Some
Right,
might
right.
need this extra step. I'm choosing to see myself as worthy.
Yeah.
So test that out. How would that feel like? I'm choosing. Because your mind
Yeah.
might have a little bit less ammunition against that sentence. Because it's
True.
not that you are claiming, you are just choosing. So your mind might be a bit more quiet. And
Yeah.
then one thing that I have seen that helps people is to start looking for those moments. Have you ever felt that you feel worthy in your life? Have you ever had a moment, even if it's a short moment?
Yes, I have, and getting more all the time. But it is, my brain still, it's
Yeah,
just like, oh, that was just, that you got lucky or something that time.
yeah,
Where it's like, yeah, that I don't know why my brain always goes towards the negative. Goes back. I suppose that's what it knows. But
yeah. And
yeah, I know what you mean there.
yeah, that happens for many. That sometimes our brain is trained that way, but the good news is you can train your brain to start also seeing the positive. But if you have had that moment, and if you haven't, by the way, listeners, you can just imagine then. Use your imagination for you. How would it feel if I would feel worthy? But you have already had those experiences, those moments when you have felt worthy. So I would
Right.
highly recommend to write them down, to have a feel-good journal.
Oh, wow. Okay,
So,
that's cool.
so
I like
because
that
we need
idea.
a reminder, we need something that is written
True.
down. It's a true experience. You felt that way. So you would have them written down and you could go back to that when you start hearing that your mind goes the opposite. So you would start reading
Right.
again those experiences that, well, I am worthy. These were the moments when I experienced it. So it's using your mind, also seeking those moments. Because otherwise
Okay.
find those moments when we don't feel worthy, but you can
Yep.
as well use it to find those moments when you do feel worthy.
Okay, I like that. Something I had never thought about either. That makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah,
rather than let your brain go that way, just retrain it to go to the positive. So I think that
totally.
is very, very cool. Very, very cool.
So
So
test it
um,
out and let me know how it goes.
I will do that. I will definitely do that. I've gotten into journaling a little bit, but never quite like that. I like that idea very much. So okay. Do you? I mean, what age group do you deal with when you're doing your coaching? I mean, do you have an age group that kind of stands out with who you deal with? Men, women, young, old, or maybe everybody?
I mainly work with mainly they are around 40 plus. I think that's the time when you
Okay.
start also really want to align what you do with your soul, like having that deeper meaning and purpose. And you might have done some journeys, like I was working in the banking before, and then I jumped and I wanted to start building a career that looks like me. So they have started
Right.
that journey as well. And I work with both all genders actually,
Okay.
and
Okay. Cool.
it's an opportunity to find the deeper meaning and purpose in life. So I normally work with people who are open to spirituality,
Sure.
open
Sure.
for
Okay.
concepts of soul. I think that's um, more my audience who are
Okay.
into wanting to understand their life from soul's perspective. And that's what
Okay.
I can help them to do.
Okay. And that's when you say spirituality, that's kind of dealing with the soul, and that's what you're talking about in when you say that, right? Is
Yes,
that did I
yes.
get that? Okay. So where did you study? Where did you learn how to do this?
So I have studied with several teachers, and I
Okay.
did my education started with my mom. I would say she was my first spiritual teacher. She was very intuitive.
Oh,
So that was,
uh-huh.
I, I was growing
That's
up
neat.
in a household where intuition and knowing things was norm. And then I realized that
Mm-hmm.
not everybody out that tuned into intuition well
Uh-huh.
afterwards. And then I studied to be a spiritual life coach in Holistic Healing College in London, UK. And after
Okay,
that,
wow, okay.
I continued. I studied a master's degree in spiritual psychology in the University of Santa
Wow.
Monica in California. And I continued
Okay.
further to study another master's in spiritual science as well in California. And
Wow.
now I'm final meters of getting a doctorate in spiritual science. So I have
That
been
is
studying and going and learning because I'm fascinated of this topic.
Yes, and congratulations on just I mean getting just about ready to get your doctorate. Very
Yes,
much congratulations. So
thank you.
that is so cool. So okay. So what is next? Where do you see this your whole journey going next? I mean the vision.
hmm The vision is to be able to reach more people and helping them to discover that power of their story and
Okay.
overcome the past. So they are not prisoners of their past, but they can just transform these inner stories and create the future they desire, grow their business, because that way we create this ripple effect of light. And
Right.
I
Yes.
and I see
Love Ripple.
myself writing a book in a near future. That's been on my mind, writing a non-fiction book. So
Okay.
that's
This,
hopefully
that
happening
is neat.
soon. So I'm now just
Yes.
building that idea and starting to draft it.
Okay. So, your books can they be found? I'm sure probably on Amazon. Can people, if they
Yes,
were interested? I mean,
yes,
okay, that's where they
they
can
are
find it.
available
So,
on Amazon.
how many books have you written then so far?
So far, I have three own ones, and then I
Okay.
have contributed to, I think it's now 5 books. I have written chapters.
Wow, that is neat. Do you have any siblings or family? What does your family think of this? Or it sounds like your mom would be very much in tune with what you do. So, if I mean, is that kind of what the? I mean, what's your family think about what you do?
Yeah, my mom was very much supportive as when she was here, and my parents have
Okay.
already passed on, but
Okay.
they
Sure.
both were proud of the journey where I started. They were able to see the about the when I was seeking my path, and I know they are still connected and cheering me
Yes.
on. And my sisters are very supportive as well, and they just see they both work in the healthcare. I'm just doing the care in a little bit different format than they are, but we all have that calling to help and serve.
Okay. Okay. That is so cool, and I truly believe that too. I lost my mom last year to Alzheimer's, but I
Oh,
still feel like
sorry.
she's here. I just it's energy, and she's just in a different form supporting me. So
That's right.
very much that way. So okay, was looking at some other things that you help people bounce back when life gives you curveballs, as you put it. So how would you deal with How would you somebody that had a curveball come in their life? How would you deal with that with the people?
So what I do is working on 4 different levels. So the first one would be checking well, depending where they are, what level we start with. But often it's checking with the thoughts, what kind of thoughts they have about the situation, about themselves.
Okay.
Then we also can work through the emotions, because especially when we go through challenging things, we often push away the emotions because that's one way of coping. But then there
Okay.
comes a time when those unresolved emotions keep bouncing back like beach balls. So it's time then to work through them so that you can have more freedom in your life because they are not anymore dictating what you do. So working on the emotions and then looking also at the actions, what you are doing or not doing because of that curveball, because what went on. And then beside all these three, because these are building a triangle, so they all need to be looked at. And then sometimes in the other coaching programs, then they might focus on multi-taking action, but if the mind and the emotions are not addressed, you can you can do the correct action, but it might not bring you the results because your mind might be fighting against it, or emotionally you are not aligned. So it's finding that alignment. And then also checking all this from soul's perspective. So that's the additional level that I bring into. And
awesome.
I believe our souls are all about learning. So I
agree.
Checking, what was going on? What are you learning through this experience in a positive sense? So then helping them to discover that learning that shifts the energy towards gratitude, and the gratitude is so uplifting.
Yes.
So then you can start maybe seeing your future in a different way than you used to do before. So that's very quickly how I normally work with my clients to get results really fast.
Okay, that is so cool. I love what you're doing. I mean, there's such a need in the world for all this, very, very much. So I think this is great. So what else do we need? Would you like us to know about you or what you do?
So I'd love to just bring that awareness that it is possible, like what we have talked here, like your past does not need to define you. That's really the message I want to bring forward for people, because yes, things happen in life.
They do.
But it does not need to define you. So it's possible to overcome very challenging life experiences and still succeed and still have whatever the success looks for you. So finding that spark to keep going. And I want also everyone who is listening to know that they are not alone. And sometimes it can feel that you are alone, but those are the moments to just reach out to somebody, whether it's me, whether it's somebody else, but just knowing that you are not alone. And even your mind might say, yes, you are, but just know that it's not true. You are not alone. There are people who care.
Yes, that's so important to hear. That is, because I think a lot of people do think they're all alone and when they get in those situations. And I think it's just, I don't know if it's normal, but I think a lot of times it is what we go towards. It's like nobody else has gone through this. I'm the only one, so no, I think that was very important to hear. So we're getting to the end of the podcast here. What I've been doing towards the end is I've been asking the audience a question that they need to ask themselves. What would be a good question to ask the audience to get them to move forward? Ask themselves today, and then give them some thought. I don't know if that would be something you have for a question. Why are you not moving forward, or what? Do you have any question you would like to ask the audience to let them just think about?
That's a good question. Maybe, what story am I telling myself?
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good question. Because I think some people don't even realize the story they are telling themselves. I think most people are. I think very important. So that's an awesome question. Thank you. I appreciate you coming up with that. So what else can we talk about? Or is that pretty much, that's in the podcast there? And if that's good for, unless you have something else you want to tell the audience, we can end there, and would love to have you come back for a follow-up podcast if that would be something you'd be open to. We'd definitely love that too. So, but on that, I'll just end the podcast. Thank you for joining us today. I appreciate you taking your time and everything. Your vibe, you're so awesome. I'm just so glad you got through the 15 years and got to this point. That is so cool. So, but on that, I'll just say we'll end it there. And thanks again. And we'll be talking soon. So
thank you. Bye. All.
Thank you.